slavery, but few discuss paper genocide. We did not all come from Africa, and most of us have Aboriginal roots that were stripped away due to reclassification and miseducation. As a Native Black American and a member of the Muscogee Creek Nation, I understand the importance of tracing your lineage. If you want to learn how to trace your genealogy and apply for tribal citizenship, send an email to mike@keymediapro.com to schedule a consultation.
Cube, why are you putting Native Americans in here? Why isn't this just for Black people?
Well, Black people are Native Americans. You know, we've had, a lot of proof that, some of us started here in this land. Everybody wasn't brought over from Africa. So, we have to, like you say, unpack all of that and try to, find the true lineage of people in this country.
As you're aware, in 1912, Dr. Walter Plecker became the first director of the Bureau of Vital Statistics. Prior to that, there were no birth certificates, and he was a director up until the 1940s, 1946, until his death. But he was part of the eugenics movement, which was a movement about creating one race of people, which was white, and everything else was put in a pot, as Tina Marie would say, and stir it up and call colored. But he went beyond board on that, wherein as far as first Americans are concerned, he changed birth certificates and marriage license. He even put out letters to census takers in 1930 that people such as myself that are first Americans and Native Americans, that he considered us as being bastards, that we were just trying to be Indian to marry into the white race. What's so interesting about that was that in the 30s he gave a presentation in New York City and on eugenics, and there were commanders associated with Adolf Hitler that attended that particular meeting.
But basically, when he was the registrar for the Bureau of Vital Records, he changed the names of Indian people in Southampton County, their race, from Indian to Negro or colored.
Well, it was referred to as colored, and basically all the tribes in Virginia in the early 1900s were referred to as colored. Okay, then after the 1924 Racial Integrity Act, everything that was in that colored bowl became Negro.
Paying homage to all those who have come before you, and there has been numerous wars that have taken place over centuries against indigenous Americans or indigenous people, Black Americans, Black people. And this is very sacred to us because it's a ritual, and it means different things in different households and different cultures all around the world. Sage is a global thing, you know what I mean? And for me personally, I went back to my tribe in South Dakota, reclaiming my identity, reclaiming my power, reclaiming my tribal relationships, my communal relationships, and I got my name, Ela, H-E-L-A, and it means little mountain in my tribe. So I have a name that was handed down to me from my great-grandfather, and it was given to me from my tribe. So that was around 2017, and I'll say this, it shook my world up because
This is inconsistent. Well, indigenous don't crack. The natives don't crack. The natives don't crack. You can see a native and he could be 90 years old and still look like 50. I'm talking for the natives. I like when it comes to talking about African Americans, I have no education with that. Period. I don't. I'm not even connecting to that no more. Because that's a system. That's like connecting to, hey, he's a bad guy. Don't hang with him. Oh, hey, I'm going to find out for myself. I'm not African American at all. My folks is not from Africa. And a lot of people in this room, folks ain't from Africa. Might be a couple, but people just don't understand. I asked my grandma, like, yo, grandma, what's your background? She like, Redfoot and Blacktail Indian. What? Yeah, my mother and my father did. We 100% Indians. Ask my other grandma, we got Cherokee in us, and European and Italian, a little Dominican. It's crazy. I'm like, what the fuck? That's why I'm over Africa. Y'all look at me funny. Like, nigga, I'm African. Like, you're not, though. Like, you're not.
I really liked the information that I learned today, and it really opened up my mind. Before, I have to say that I was a little bit more closed-minded, and sadly, I didn't really understand a lot of the things about Native American history that my mom was also have been trying to tell me about the people in America. But this really opened my mind, and it also was really, really easy information to understand. Even though it was a lot of information, it was still very, very easy to understand. So I recommend, especially for the people with closed minds or the people who don't believe some things about ancestry and Native American history of Americans, and many Americans in America, I really recommend that they give this a shot and look at this information, because I do believe that it's different and that you will learn a lot.
And you learn so much about history that they don't teach in schools. They're not actually Black, but they were Native Americans. But just because of how they looked, then they would reclassify them differently. Like first they were Native, and then they became mulatto, and then they were colored, and then they were Black, and then they were African first, then American. So it's like so many different classifications, and it sort of like keeps our true identity buried. But this, you learn how to put together your family tree. You are actually taught how to not just put together a family tree, but to connect your background with your Native heritage. And that's very important.
About slavery, but few discuss paper genocide. We did not all come from Africa, and most of us have Aboriginal roots that were stripped away due to reclassification and miseducation. As a Native Black American and a member of the Muscogee Creek Nation, I understand the importance of tracing your lineage. If you want to learn how to trace your genealogy and apply for tribal citizenship, send an email to mike@keymediapro.com to schedule a consultation.
I am not a slave, I was born to slide, I am not afraid. Hop about the K, oh yeah, free to God, they went out of state. I'm a child of God, I do not belong to the United States. For Black history, tell Uncle Sam he can catch a fade. I went to hell, I mean school, graduated at the top of my class. Still never thought I was over my peers. We did that time together, 12 years. Ain't that some movie? I think that it is. They won't control me, I'm really a member. I traveled that road, I came back with the jewels for 'em. When I pull up, they pee how the roof gone. We some dog killers, won't chew bones. Know we all spit 'em, we supreme. Somewhere I read a nigga had a dream.
You don't have to try to be something you're not. God, I can't stand this. Trying to be something I'm not? Trying to be proud of my African heritage? If that's being something I'm not, then fine. My grandmother was a full-blooded Iroquois. My grandfather was a Black from a long line of journeymen who lived in Connecticut since the establishment of the colonies. My father was a Bajan who came to this country a cabin boy in a merchant marina. I know all of that, Mama. Then know this. I am alive because of the blood of a people who never scraped or begged or apologized for what they were. They asked only one thing of this world: to be allowed to be. I gave you my grandmother's name, a woman who bore 9 children and educated them all. Who held off 6 white men with a shotgun when they tried to drag one of her sons off to jail for not knowing his place. And you had to reach into an African dictionary to find a name that would make you proud.
I was born Black, I live Black, and I'm gonna die probably because some cracker that knows I'm Black better than you, nigga, is probably gonna put a bullet in the back of my head.
This is the remix. My father was raised in the era when Black niggas couldn't claim Native American. Making music would've thought I had help, but the Indians I know wanna be the chief they self.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let me get some fists and feathers in the chat. If you can hear me loud, crisp, and clear, and we'll go ahead and get this party started. Now, I know that the image on the thumbnail, the image far right, this lovely Black Indian woman, I've shared this image for quite some time now, but we've never actually read this article that this image is from. So let's go ahead and take a look. But before we do, I urge you to hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. And throw 5 on the Cash App or the PayPal if you support the mission. You know, YouTube still has us demonetized and shadow banned, but we're still here to spread the word. Now let's go ahead and take a look at this photo but more specifically, the article that I get this photo here from. As you can see, the article is titled Honoring Black Indian Heritage. This Black woman is holding a Black Indians Choctaw United card of some sort. Right here, it says that her name is Mary Duncan, whose father is Edward Joshua, was a member of the Mississippi Choctaw tribe. She's been selected to receive the Black Indians United Heritage Award. Okay, interesting. Let's do a little bit of digging here. Let's do a little bit of reading. You know, reading is oh so fundamental. It says here that Mary Duncan, 87, of Hattiesburg, is a Black Indian. Wait a minute, what? She's a Black Indian? Huh? But I thought they said that there's no such thing as Black Indians, guys. I thought that the Mongoloid Siberian immigrants, as well as the Africans, as well as the white supremacists, I thought they're all in league together. They're all, you know, arm in arm, interlocked, galvanized to tell us that we're not Indian. So this is very interesting. This is very, very interesting to say the least. But you know what? Before we continue reading, before we take this further, I got to show something else too, because I feel like this whole article is going to be about Black Indians and the heritage of Black Indians. So for anybody out there that's not aware, if there's anybody out there that's like, what do you mean there's all these people that say that you're not it? Like, obviously Black folks have Aboriginal roots, Mike. What are you talking about, Mike? What are you talking about? Well, let me go ahead and show you a little bit. I think I can show you better than I can tell you. Check this out. Check this out. And actually, I've done such a good job spreading the word as of late that I think that this could really be summed up with just checking out the intro to a previous video I did not long ago. Bear with me just a moment. You see, it was maybe like a week ago now. I did a couple videos about this weird phenomenon. This phenomenon was these greasy ass backward savage Africans trying to tell us what our heritage is or is not. You know what? Oh, we're getting warm. We're getting warm. I'm looking for a greasy upset African. Here we go. Here we go. Yeah, I did something on them fighting for Russia. Did something about them getting paid to leave the UK. But I feel like I did something not too long ago. If any of you guys actually saw that last live stream I did, then put a 1 in the chat so I know if there's any of you guys that were privy to that stream, because we were really surprised to find this African girl that was so emotionally invested in trying to dictate to us what our history and heritage is. I think it was this one. Oh, wait, you know what? There's so many videos of these Africans talking greasy. That's the wrong one. That's the one where the Africans were trying to convince us that we're beneath them and you know, they're way up here and blase, blase, blase. Let me see which one I'm looking for. We had the college class. Damn, I do so much content, y'all. I do so much content. I can't even find it sometimes. Okay, here we go. So before we properly set the stage, getting into some of this Black Indian heritage, let's just take a look at how these Africans are speaking about us. Because I'm telling you, they've got a lot of passion, to say the least. You can say a lot of passion. I say a lot of vitriol. But let's take a quick look.
Round with that fake history you are giving. Stop it. You call yourself Native Americans, yet you don't even know your tribe. Where is your tribe? What is the name of your tribe? What language do you speak, your so-called Native Americans? What language do you guys speak? Because every single tribe or every single country in this world have their own language.
Well, lady, my tribe is the Muscogee Creek Nation. We speak Muscogee. That's the name of our language. I believe you say Hesky as a greeting. I'm not sure if you're aware, but less than 2% of American Indians actually speak their indigenous tongue. So when you ask Black people why they aren't speaking blase, blase, blah, I mean, even the natives on the reservation don't speak the original language. My tribe's the Creek Nation. This lady right here is Choctaw. So again, I don't know why we've got these Africans, these pan goofies, white supremacists, and Mongoloid $5 Indians on the res trying to tell us who we are or who we are not. You would think they would just stay in their own lane, but I guess not. It clearly says right here that Mary Duncan, 87, is a Black Indian. Her father, Edward Joshua, was a member of the Mississippi Choctaw tribe, and Duncan grew up speaking the Choctaw language. Oh, but the African girl said that we don't speak no languages. Okay. All right. Let's keep reading, guys. Although it is hard to remember much of it now, she said her early life was full of powwows and many other American Indian traditions. Duncan recently was elected to receive the Heritage Award from Black Indians United. Her grandson, Hattiesburg native Edgar Al Mollett, is president of the organization. He said his American Indian heritage is very important to him and his family, but it has not been an easy heritage to trace. As a child, sitting around a fire with cousins and uncles, dancing, singing, and shouting in what sounded like strange gibberish seemed like a good time, said Mollett. He later would discover that the strange gibberish was the Choctaw language. The song and the dance, he said, were all part of ceremonies led by his grandmother and her siblings. Mollett said he was about 10 when his grandmother told him he was not just Black. He said he was hesitant to believe her at first, but now he fully understands what she was talking about. Mollett and his wife Angela are Black Indians. They live in Oklahoma, where Angela is curator of Southern Heights Museum. It wasn't until 1999 that the Molletts seriously began exploring their Native American roots, Angela said. The journey into their lineage, she said, has been an eye-opening and exciting experience that continues today. But the experience, Angela Mollett said, has not always been joyful. Quote, it has been sad, enriching, and overwhelming. Sad, enriching, and overwhelming. I have met some Choctaws who said we would never be accepted. And Almonte said problems have come in his family with relatives who ignore their American Indian heritage and insist he should focus on his African American roots. Quote, we embrace any African roots we have, Angela Mollett said. Black Indians are not necessarily slaves who mix with Native Americans, she said. Black Indians are documented as being here in the Americas as early as 1500 BC. Come on, y'all, let's get to it. Quote, African slaves and Native Americans did mix, Angela Mollett said, and their offspring also are counted as Black Indians, but there were many Black Indians in America before the Pilgrims arrived. Mollett said that even though her ancestors walked the Trail of Tears, she is still not recognized by the U.S. and tribal governments as a Native American. However, she said she is chairwoman of an organization, Freedmen Descendants of the Five Civilized Tribes, that works to get Black Indians official recognition of their heritage. We're fighting for citizenship as Black Indians, not African Americans, she said. We traced our roots and we found Sitting Bull, not Kunta Kinte. And that's a bar. She said, I did my heritage and we found Sitting Bull, not no Kunta Kinte. Despite resistance, Almonte said it was the right decision for his family to search for their roots. A lot of family members didn't like what I was doing, Almonte said. They would say, why can't you be happy just being Black? But in order to understand ourselves as a people, we need to know where we come from. Duncan said she is the last surviving member of her family who knew her Choctaw father. The traditions he taught her, she said, have been important, and his wife are working to keep these traditions alive. Come on, y'all, let's talk about it. And this is the exact type of work that I assist you guys with day in and day out as far as genealogy, paper trail research is concerned. When we do our heritage and we map out the different branches of our family tree, like she said, we find Sitting Bull. We don't find no Kunta Kinte. I've performed genealogical research for over 100 clients, and I've literally only had 2 that have had any African heritage. And one of them had a parent from St. Barnabas, another one had a parent from Jamaica. So is it any surprise that there was some African heritage in that mixture? But let's go ahead and take a deep dive. We don't know what we don't know until we start tracing our ancestors.
Was very impressed. Okay, my jaw dropped plenty of times during this consultation, and I wish it didn't even have to end. It doesn't feel like it has been a couple of hours. I've just enjoyed this. I do recommend consulting with Mike about Native American ancestry, and I think that you will love it. I think that you will find the value in the information as I did.
Black History Month, you find
ridiculous.
Why?
You're going to relegate my history to a month?
Oh, come on.
What do you do with yours? Which month is White History Month? Well, come on, tell me.
Well, I'm Jewish.
Okay, which month is Jewish History Month?
There isn't one.
Oh, why not?
Yeah.
Do you want one?
No.
I don't either. I don't want a Black History Month. Black history is American history.
Now that we know we've always been here, what do we do now? How do we get the world to believe us? Does it even matter if anyone else does? How could we accept living in a world where our children are taught lies? A wise man once said, "The truth is eternally kept, and a lie dies with the wicked." We could expose every lie in the world, and people still wouldn't believe, because the truth is a weapon for those who live lies. Our ancestors lived those lies, and we continue to do so as we suffer the same iniquities of our predecessors, leading us into generations of slavery, idolatry, and confusion, to the point we wander our homeland aimlessly searching for purpose, all while thinking we were shipped across the world. That psychological mind control is by design. The purpose is to mentally condition Black Americans into a perpetual state of second-class citizenship through psychological and social reconstruction. This method sought to disenfranchise Black Indians from their homeland through the establishment of laws and codes written into the inner processes of government operations. These new laws manifested themselves in a way that would systematically engineer the social classification of Indians unto this day. The concept of land ownership was something new to these people. Through disease, the sword.
Oh, yes. And as of late, I've really been trying to highlight this Virginia Slave Code of 1670. Free Africans and Indians cannot purchase white servants, but can purchase any from their own nation. What does that tell us? That not every Indian and not every African was a slave. Some were free. Not only were some free, but some of them had slaves of their own. Not only were some of them free and had slaves of their own, but some were free, had slaves of their own, and their slaves were white. Not only were some of them free, had slaves of their own that were white, but they had so many white slaves that the government thought that it would be in their best interest to put a law on the books, making it so that they can no longer purchase white servants or Christians.
And the gun. These rules were imposed. The term Negro became synonymous with Black and African, neither of which is true, but both necessary for the total destruction of a people's history. Why did it take over 50 years of African slavery before Virginia enacted the Virginia Slave Codes or the Virginia Slave Act of 1682? Why was it important to categorize Black Indians and African slaves into one single category when there had been no such previous classification? Then why was it lawful for any Negro caught without the proper paperwork to be kidnapped into slavery? Slavery in the Americas was harsh, brutal, and most importantly, lasted a lifetime. And now, under new slave laws, a crew of Europeans armed with rabid dogs and guns can legally kill and rape themselves into a fortune. Just ask any conquistador. Slavery was a necessary tool for Europeans to establish themselves in the new old world, without which they would not have surely survived. Completely unprepared for the wilderness, the same heathens responsible for the murder of millions were at one time themselves on the brink of death and desperate for survival. It was the natives who consistently bailed out these conquistadors whenever they were in trouble. These conquistadors were presented with lavish gifts and treated like kings until at some point they wore out their welcome. And then, depending on their situation or desperation, they would move on to the next destination or pull a surprise murder hijack at a night festival and pack the boat full of Indians for a rape cruise back across the treacherous Atlantic, where the unlucky survivors were sold into slavery.
Talk to me in the comments.
The Negro is still languished in the corners of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land. Finds himself in exile in his own land. Finds himself in exile in his own land.
A lot of people don't know that America tends to cover up the history of its Afro-Native Americans, okay? So the Native American depiction that they mainly show in the mainstream is often a straight-haired, lighter-complected, almost Euro representing person. However, the kinky-haired, black beings, we're also Native Americans. I am Native American in the flesh. So make sure you guys are tapping into your history, know where you really come from, know what land you originate from. You know, Ashe, Aseo.
We were here before Columbus, before all of that shit. We were here. We had lands, we had empires and shit that the white man, through rewriting history and stuff, whatever, is keeping hidden from
so-called Africa to America. You won't find it. Why? If we went through this big transatlantic slave trade, then where are the true stories coming down from my ancestors and coming down from my family? I'm very deep into my family. I know my family bloodline, where we come from. My grandma on my mama's side was full blood. I mean, on my father, on my grandpa's side or my paternal side, full-blooded Cherokee. She used to chew tobacco. She had long ponytails. She used to give me buffalo quarters that's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars now. And I wish I would have kept them. But she was full-blooded Cherokee. She used to be in her full Cherokee regalia talking to her. I used to sit by her left hand, and she ended up getting like throat cancer because all she did was chew tobacco. Ancient traditions of Indians in America. And she told me where she was from. My grandma, my great-grandma on my maternal side was full-blooded Choctaw, a Chaptay, from Louisiana. So I did my gene. And then it's another thing. You have something called African ancestry, and guess what you got too? Indigenous native ancestry. Why is there two different blood tests? So I even think it's something going on with that, on what they're doing with these DNA tests that's automatically bringing us back to Africa. There was a test done where this dude, it was a white man. He said that he had a suspicion about them lying with the DNA test, and he sent the saliva of his lizard to Ancestry.com. Did you know his lizard came back 34% Nigerian? I'm just saying. So man, all this propaganda, man. And look, I don't care if they mad at me or not. All I'm saying is research what I'm saying. I know it sounds taboo, but what happened if the biggest conspiracy in the history of lies happened? And that is that we are indigenous from America. We come from America. We don't come from Africa. But in order for them to take the precious treasures of America, which we have oil, we have gold, we have copper, we have all of that here. They act like all this is in Africa. All this is here too. What happened if it was to drive us out, connect us back to Africa, for we want to go back home, and while we going back to so-called home, we're leaving our home and they taking over our land? I'm just saying, when you really think about it, then look, what happened if the maps is flipped? Because from my understanding of my studies, Lebanon, Illinois was called Lebanon before there was a Lebanon over there. What about Israel? Here. What about Judah, or what you would call Utah? This is here. You start getting into these old names. There's a city out here called Morocco. These are different cities. And what about Memphis? Where's Memphis at? Memphis, Tennessee, that has one of the oldest pyramids here. It's a pyramid in Memphis right now. They didn't put glass over. That's a real pyramid. But then you have a Memphis over there in where? Egypt. What about Cairo? Cairo, Illinois. That's here in the Americas. So we have these different cities in these different states named after stuff that's in Africa. But when you do deep research and study, these was named that here before it was named that there. I'm saying we got to talk about, then you think you got stuff like Milwaukee. That's an Indian tribe name. You know what I'm saying? Chattanooga, Tennessee. That's an Indian name. So you start going, and then you got different sections in, because Missouri and Illinois is one of your most oldest places in the world, where I'm from. One of your most oldest places. You got Chickasaw Street. You got Cherokee Street. And then you start seeing there's different museums around there that got all of our stuff in it. They got other people's faces on it. They have did this to the whole world, where they go around where ancient ancestral black people come from. They will change the faces to them, and then they'll take our history. So my belief, my research, my study shows that we are in the oldest parts of the world, which is ancient America. We are not from Africa. I do believe that all people of melanin descent do have some type of ancestral and DNA connection, but we are not all the same people, and we don't all keep or hold the same traditions. And I believe a lot of islanders, like such as yourself, actually come from the lower Americas, and it actually was a ship's trade there, where a lot of y'all went from the South America to the islands.
You're not free. You're
In 1452, Pope Nicholas V issued a papal bull. It authorized Alfonso of Portugal to conquer all Saracens, pagans, and non-Christians and deliver them into perpetual servitude. In 1469, Queen Isabella of Castile and King Ferdinand of House Aragon got married. This is the most important wedding in Spanish history and possibly world history. It is generally mentioned that this marriage initiates the unification of Spain. In 1491, the battle at Granada officially ended Moorish rule in Spain. The families of those Muslims were driven out. The Treaty of Granada was signed on November 25th, 1491, between Boabdil the Sultan and Isabella and King Ferdinand. In 1492, the Queen and King of Castile, Ferdinand and Isabella, the King and Queen authorized and financed Christopher Columbus's first voyage to the Americas, in which he was given the responsibility to sail west and claim land for Spain. Scholars have asserted for centuries that this voyage west for the first time brought knowledge of the existence of the Americas, in which the Europeans had no prior knowledge of. This idea is a completely false narrative. The Americas were well known and had been trading with other areas of the world since the dawn of civilization.
And actually, we're going to take a brief break to segue into some new history that I have recently discovered about my own family. So I know that, I share the fact that I'm a member of the Muscogee Creek Nation. I'm a genealogist, all that. But genealogy research is something that's ongoing. I've just recently, when was it? No, it was like late last week, early this week, I came across some information on one of my ancestors. And this really points to the racial reclassification and how a lot of us have been made victims of paper genocide. If you see right here, we've got my family tree. And when we look at this side of my family, basically all these folks you see right here are card-carrying American Indians, on the dolls roll and all that good stuff. But something that was very, very interesting that I had discovered was that this guy, Pleasant Tobler, he's listed on the dolls roll as a half-blooded Indian. Why is he listed as a half-blood? Well, because his father, Fred, was too dark. Even though his father, Fred, was a full-blooded Indian, he was dark, and they kind of had a brown paper back test where if you're too dark, they call you a freedman, and they don't acknowledge your Indian blood. So his mother, Mary, full-blooded Indian. His father, Fred, is reclassified as a freedman. They don't record his Indian blood. So now he's listed as a half-blood, right? Well, let's go a bit further, because when it comes to Mary's side, I know that Mary's side of the family is not classified as freedmen. So I'm assuming that she must be very, very fair-skinned. These might be these mongoloid-looking natives even, maybe some of these Siberian straight natives. Like, what's going on for one parent to be labeled a freedman and the other not to be labeled a freedman? Well, just a few days ago, I finally found a photo of Mary's father, Thomas Adams Hutcho. And not only did I find a photo, but when we zoom in on this photo, this is real strange, guys. I know the photo's in black and white. I know the hair is clearly straight, or maybe straight and curly. I'm not sure. But just looking at this photo, we can clearly tell this looks like a black man. This looks like a man with some melanin. This does not look like one of those Siberian straight natives. This does not look like no Elizabeth Warren. This don't look like this. He don't look like this. Nah, that looked like a black Indian to me. But even still, I'm a genealogist. I need research. I need evidence. I just can't just go on a black and white photo and be like, yeah, he's clearly a melanated man. So I did some digging. And guess what I discovered? I discovered that this man, Thomas Jefferson Adams, he's actually, and a lot of my family are actually in a book. Yes, you heard it here first. My family is written about, the legacy of my family is written about in this book that came out in 2005 called Black, White, and Indian: Race and the Unmaking of an American Family. And this book talks about how Black Indians, sometimes they have light-skinned members of the family, sometimes they have dark-skinned members of the family. Some of the lighter-skinned members just totally act like they're Caucasian or act like they're Indian and don't have any Black admixture. Some of the Black ones don't even acknowledge that they're Indian and just think they're African American. Basically, this was about racial reclassification and the nuance and different shades and varying degrees of it. But let's go ahead and read a little bit of this, and I'll show you guys how these people in this book are on my family tree. This guy is Chester Adams. In June 2000, the author of this book came to Chester Adams to interview Chester. Let's see who Chester Adams is. It says here, in 2000, Chester Adams lived in a small, dilapidated ranch-style house off of a gravel road in Biggs, Oklahoma. I pulled open the broken screen door and knocked. A rail-thin black man answered, pointed me to the back room, and then sunk back down on a stained couch. Wait a minute, they are already classifying him as a black man. He's already being described as a black man. Well, in a moment, let's see where Chester Adams is on my family tree. A black man answered, pointed me to the back room, and then sunk back down on a stained couch before a television loudly broadcasting the day's stock car race. I cautiously entered the dark house and was struck by the sour smell of urine. In the back room, Adams was lying across an unmade bed watching a college football game on television. An oxygen machine puffed next to him, and he wore the tubing over his nose throughout our meeting. Okay, so basically he done walked into a cliche old person house, okay? They watching TV, it smelled like some pee, they probably got a diaper on or something, they got the oxygen tank next to the bed, okay? It's like anybody's old aunt, old uncle, grandma, grandpa, okay. I'm getting the picture here. So in 2000, Chester Adams must have been old as hell. It says, an oxygen machine puffed next to him, and he wore the tubing over his nose throughout our meeting. Medicine bottles lay scattered across the table. The floor was covered in shag carpet in shades of orange and brown. Adams was 79 when I met him. He had receding gray hair, dark honey skin, and an easy laugh. Betsy Grayson was his great-great-grandmother, although various documents reveal that Betsy was an intimate relative of Caddy, Watt, William, and Elizabeth, the children of Robert Gerson. Her precise relationship to them remains unknown. Betsy had 3 children by an unnamed man, father unknown. Her daughter Mahala married Thomas J. Adams. Wait a minute. Weren't we just talking about Thomas J. for Jefferson Adams? Who did it just mention here? It said Chester Adams. It said Chester Adams's mother was Betsy. Is there anybody on my family tree named Betsy? Oh, we got a Betsy Grayson right here. Okay. So we got Thomas mentioned in the book. He's on the tree. We got Betsy Grayson mentioned in the book. She's on the tree. And then they're about to mention Mahala. It says right here that Betsy had 3 children. Her daughter Mahala, which is right here, her daughter Mahala, married who? Her daughter Mahala married Thomas J. Adams. So again, Betsy Grayson, her daughter's Mahala, married Thomas J. Adams. And how are they describing Thomas J. Adams here? Let me see if we can zoom in on this for you guys. Let's zoom in here. Her daughter Mahala married Thomas J. Adams, a Creek of African descent, born in 1842. A Creek of African descent. Guys, you already know if it's past the year 1988, and they're talking about any black person in America, we are reclassified as an African. This book came out in 2005, so it's any wonder why they're trying to say he's a Creek of African descent. But let's take a look here. My ancestors are written about in this book about racial reclassification. It says Mahala married Thomas J. Adams, and he's a Creek of African descent, born in 1842. Well, wait a minute. If he's a Creek of African descent, then why, when I find his tribal documents, and why, when on his tribal documents, we find his Dawes roll number 2145, and why, when we go to the Dawes roll and type in 2145, do we find Thomas J. Adams listed on the Dawes roll at 57, gender male, blood quantum is fool. He's listed as Creek by blood. So this author in this book is going to say that Adams was a Creek of African descent. Guys, remember, this is a photo of Adams. This is what Adams looked like. They saying this man has African descent. He don't look like an African to me. That ain't no African hair on his head. That ain't no African facial hair. I don't see nothing that looks like an African there. But because he got some melanin, you see how they want to reclassify an EG, right? A Creek of African ancestry. If he's of African ancestry, he should be labeled a freedman, right? Isn't it the freedmen who are supposed to be the African slaves that married into the tribe and blah, 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 blah? Why is he listed as a full-blooded Indian if they're saying he has African ancestry? It don't make no sense, does it? It don't make no sense at all. On the 1910 federal U.S. Census, Thomas Adams is listed as 71 years old as an Indian, a Native American, full-blood Native American, but this book is going to say that he's a Creek of African descent. Well, let's keep reading. Mahala married Thomas J. Adams, a Creek of African descent, born in 1842. Adams became the Chief Justice of the Creek Nation in the late 1800s. Damn. So one of my direct lineal ancestors was a Chief Justice of the Creek Nation. Let's talk about it, y'all. Let's talk about it. Adams became the Chief Justice of the Creek Nation in the late 1800s, suggesting that some Black Muscogees still wielded significant power. Their children were visibly of African descent, and they spoke Creek fluently. Wait a minute. So they're talking about Thomas J. Adams. They're claiming that he has African descent. The truth says, to be honest, he looks more Pacific Islander or Melanesian. I would agree, more so than he looks like an African, right? But now this book is going to try to say that not only does he have African descent, but his children have visible African descent, but they speak Creek fluently. Wait a minute. Who's his children? His children, one of them of which is Mary Adams? Hold on, wait a minute. If that's the case, when I go and search for Mary Adams on the Dawes roll right now, I should be able to find Mary Adams listed as a freedman. If she clearly has African heritage, just based off how she looked, right? Just based off how she looked, they claiming that she got some African heritage. Well, let me see. Mary Adams. Let's see if we can find some American Indian documents on her. And again, guys, go ahead and schedule a consultation if you've yet to trace your family's heritage. This is the kind of stuff that I teach you guys how to do. But let's see if we can find Mary on the Dawes roll. Let's see. Mary Adams. Before we even look on the Dawes roll, we're doing a record search right now to see if we can find anything that has a roll number, because you don't want to just go typing in names on the Dawes roll. You want to go by a roll number. Here we go. Oklahoma Creek Equalization Records, Census and Voters List. Let's see if we've got a roll number for her on this document. Let's see. Fred Tobler, Creek Freedman. That's her husband. But where is Mary? Are they going to mention Mary in the documents? We got Pleasant Tobler. We've got Ida. We got Fred. Okay, here we go. If married, what's the name of the wife? Mary. We got her here, but I need a Dawes roll for her. I need a Dawes roll. I want that roll number. I'm not seeing a roll number. Hold on, guys. I need to find a roll number. You know what I could also try to find is I'm going to pull Pleasant Tobler on the Dawes roll first. I think his number was 1017. We've got Pleasant Tobler right here. And if we search his card, his family might be on. Nope, we're not seeing his family on his card. Okay. Well, you know what then? I'm going to do the unthinkable, and I'm actually going to search by first and last name. Because I would really love to see what she is listed as on this Dawes roll. Is she listed as a freedman? They're claiming she looks African. We see 3 Mary Adams listed on the Dawes roll. One of them is listed as a freedman. One of them is listed as 3/4. One of them is listed as full blood. Well, let's do the process of elimination and figure out which one of these Marys is the right Mary. If we go back, we see that this Mary was born in 1886, right? 1886. The Dawes roll ran from 1898 to 1914. This first Mary that's Creek by blood, she's placed on the Dawes roll at 12 years old. If she was born in 1886, at 12 years old, she would be 18. At 12 years old, the year would be 1898, which falls in line with this time frame right here. She can't be the 1-year-old Mary Adams, because that means she would be placed on the Dawes roll at 1877, which is before the invention of the Dawes roll. She can't be this Mary Adams as 25, because if she was that Mary Adams as 25, then that means she'd be placed on the Dawes roll at 1911. It does fall within the range. It is possible, I guess. It is possible. But the one that adds up perfectly based on the year and the age is going to be this Mary Adams. And again, she's listed as a Creek by blood, full blood quantum, just like her father. So we're seeing right here live and direct how full-blooded Black Indians are being reclassified as African, just based off them having some melanin. It's going to say that Adams was a Creek of African descent, born in 1842. He spoke the language. Him and his children speak the language. They're on the Dawes roll as full-blooded natives. They're on the census as full-blooded natives. He's a chief justice, holds significant power within the tribe. Children speak Creek fluently, but they're going to say that they're visibly African. What the fuck does visibly African mean? One of them, Lewis, was the father of Washington, and Washington was the father of Chester, who sat before me on a bed strewn with newspapers, socks, medicine bottles, and other odds and ends. As a child in the 1920s, Adams went to a black school and a Methodist church attended by blacks and a few Creeks. I had 2 cousins who tried to go to the white school, but they were not allowed, he recalled. They later went to Haskell, an Indian boarding school established by the Bureau of Indian Affairs. I got family who went through the fucking Indian boarding schools. Come on. Look at all these Black Indians. The Creek Council House in Okmulgee, Oklahoma in the late 19th century, Thomas J. Adams, the Chief Justice of the Creek Nation and the great-grandfather of Chester Adams, is standing in the foreground. So this is him right here then. That's the foreground. This would be the background. So he's right here, Chief Justice up front. When he was 21, he moved to Detroit and took a job as a bus driver. Later, he got a job with General Motors, where he worked for 24 years building Pontiacs. And right now, we're talking about Chester. We're not talking about his father, Thomas. In Detroit, he observed he lived in an all-black neighborhood, and although he used to hunt with a number of Cree friends on the Cree reservation in Canada, he was identified as Black in strictly segregated Detroit. Nevertheless, he found the big city liberating. In Detroit, he remembered, you said what you wanted, and if you could buy it, you can get it. The racial situation in Oklahoma, by contrast, was much more complicated and perhaps untimely more frustrating. Down here, I was aware of the fact that I wasn't white. I wasn't Black, he told me. In fact, some of his cousins go as white, others go as Black. Adam's maternal cousin, for example, is blonde and goes as white. Although she lives in nearby Tulsa, they last spoke to each other in 1937, but when they were kids, she visited him regularly in Beggs. They came to stay with us for all the summer to ride horses and be outdoors, Adams recalled. Today, you call her an Indian, and she wouldn't speak to you. So again, this book is called Black, White, and Indian, Race and the Unmasking of an American Family. And in this book, it cites several of my lineal ancestors from Mahala. Oh, wait a minute. Where Mahala go? Yeah, Mahala's up here. From Mary,
Get
Thomas, Mahala, Betsy Grayson. They're not only on my family tree, but they're also in this book. And this book takes a deep dive into the racial hierarchy, the racial reclassification. He's saying straight up, he got cousins that go by white. He got cousins that if you tell them they Indian, they don't want to talk to you no more. So you see how a lot of us deal with paper genocide and reclassification differently. You got the black folks that resist, and you got the black folks who were white passing and try to just adopt a whole different identity. But, you know, just by me doing my own family genealogical research, I was able to unearth so much. So just imagine how much you would discover when you go ahead and start doing the research on your own family.
Session. It was a lot of informal information that was given. I am very extensive when it comes to history, so I think that it was great information because I learned quite a few things that I didn't know personally. I learned more in detail on some things that I did know as well. So I think that is a great part of the session, as well as getting an understanding of where you should start to finish. It was very helpful as far as starting off with just getting that family tree mapped out, and then from there going and finding those families within those different documents and different data systems. So I think that this was very helpful when it comes to giving me further ideas on what it is that I should be looking for while creating my family tree and mapping out my genealogy. And I truly, honestly appreciate your time.
They don't want you to remember this. You not no slave, you indigenous. Fuck how they painted them Indians. You went to war with the French and the British men. Quite frankly, you was kings, Merovingians. They took the women and men, made them prisoners. Raised up the children to worship their images. Set up a lab to the genes and they mixed them. And this shit get way deeper than your pigment.